How to blur a background in Affinity. Let's get into it. Begin by loading in your photo, then come over to the Layers panel, select your photo layer, then press Command or Control J on your keyboard to create a duplicate. Next, with the top layer selected, come over to your toolbar and select the Object Selection tool. If you don't see this here, you can click on these three dots here, search for the tool in this window and then just simply drag it into your toolbar. So with the Object Selection tool selected, the next step is to hover your mouse over your subject and then just click. This is going to create a selection of your subject. There may be cases where this hasn't done the most perfect job. In those situations, I recommend zooming in on those areas and then just using the Object Selection tool to reselect the bits that it's missed. Just do this for your whole image. With that complete, we can go one step further and come up to Refine. This is going to allow us to refine the selection of our subject, taking care of any detailed bits such as hair around the edges. You can change the size of the brush here if you want to work with a smaller brush. For example, I'll change mine to 25 so the brush isn't too big for what I'm working with. All we then have to do is paint around the edges of the subject like so, just to make sure that any detailed bits are included in this selection. Once you're happy with that, you can then click Apply, and then this is going to give you a selection of your subject. Next, with this top layer still selected, click this mask button. This is essentially going to cut out the subject from the background. If we just disable this lower layer for one moment, we can see what it has done here. If you press Command or Control D on your keyboard to deselect, we can see that we've got a little bit of noise around the edges of our subject. While Affinity does do a good job, it does still need a little bit of help. So we can fix this by coming into our brush tool in the toolbar. Again, if you don't see this, click these dots and then add it to your toolbar. And then the next step is to go around the outline just to tidy up these areas for your image. If you find you overpaint, for example if you go too far in, you can press X on your keyboard to switch to the Add to selection and just paint it back in like so. Continue going around the rest of your image tidying up the edges. Okay, so for the purposes of this video I've just done a rough tidy up of my image there. The next step is to come back over to the Layers panel, re-enable your background layer and disable the layer that we've just worked on with the mask. Next, come back over to the Object Selection tool, make sure that you have that second layer selected and reselect your subject again. This time with this selection we're going to come up to Pixel, Pixel Selection and select Grow/Shrink. This is going to allow us to extend our selection because essentially we're going to remove this woman from this image so that we have a clean result behind her when we come to blur the background. To extend this selection, you just have to increase this slider like so, and you will see your selection grow. I'm going to take mine to just past the point of where her wispy hair is up here. Everybody's is going to be different. When you're happy with that, choose Apply. Next, come back up into Pixel, then come down to In Paint. This is going to analyze your image and in paint that area. Next, press Command or Control D on your keyboard. Don't worry if this doesn't look perfect, as when we re-enable the layer, she's going to hide it. We can go ahead and re-enable that top layer now, and as we can see there, she hides most of the area that looked a little strange there, and when we come to blur this, it will also get rid of these weird areas around the edge too. So the final step is to blur this back plate of our image, so make sure you have the background part selected, come down to this filter icon and select Gaussian Blur. This window is going to appear. You can increase the level of your blur by sliding this radius slider up. If we bring it all the way up, it gets more blurred. If we bring it all the way down, it's less blurred. Find a blur that works well for your project. I'm going to go for something like this. Now in some cases you may get soft edges around the edges like so. You can fix this by selecting Preserve Alpha, and that's essentially going to fill in those edges. Once you're happy with your blur, you can click out of this and that's all there is to it.